Hello everyone, Nevleen here, and welcome back to Edain Mod Overexplained. I was thinking of doing something else for this video, for this particular day, but I decided to go back to doing Overexplained because it is the 7-year anniversary of the channel. I've been doing this for 7 years. I can't believe I've been doing it for so long. It's been so much fun making these videos for you guys and actually seeing you respond and actually just being able to do it in general and just enjoying it. So it's just so much fun. Anyway, back to the video. We're over-explaining Mordor today, and I finally got a more fitted out structure for how I want to get this video done. So firstly, we're going to talk about their mechanics. And Mordor in particular has one mechanic that probably sets them aside from all other factions in the game. And that is the fact that Sauron is their entire faction. He is a special kind of support in that he has this here called the Expansion of Power, where every little thing you complete here will later on allow you to just get levels to Sauron for free. And every level you give for Sauron, you can see some heroes here have no level themselves. Their level is tied to Sauron. So in this case, it's the Mouth of Sauron and all the Nazguls, from the Witch King, Shadow Lord, Khamul, Dark Marshal, and the Black Riders. So with every level that Sauron gets, he gives it to every one of his allies. And he does that by making a ring wraith, building an outpost, getting the tier 4 powers, recruiting Castellans or Minas Morgul knights, commanding all 9 Nazgul, having at least 15 orc hordes, equipping 4 archers with fire arrows or 3 trolls with troll armor, commanding 6 overseers, commanding a battalion of Cirith owning a siege works at level 3, owning a orc horde at level 5, its maximum level, having Gothmog or Moloch reach level 5, or commanding 4 trolls. And you see I've only not done 2 of them because I've done most of them just by getting everything set up here. And oh, it's a lot. But also, Sauron in himself is probably the most versatile hero in the game, in that he supports in many different ways, but mostly in the influence of Sauron powers. So once Sauron reaches level 3, he can then give his blessing to a building. And that building will be given his will, which you can see by including some extra dark banners around the thing, which shows that it has his influence. You can see here, this banner here is different to this one, because it's had its influence put onto it. So, each influence ability, you can give your barracks the ability to research fire arrows, Troll Cage, research troll armor, and then later getting a certain weapon type for a troll. You can get the tribute camps, arsenals, slave farms, and slaughterhouses, a level each. Which, by the way, in free build, you select any of those, it gives all of them 1 level, but it's a one-time thing. And obviously, in free build, things are different, so that's all I'm going to talk about with that. The battle tower doubles the number of archers, so it saves them to spend money on every single tower to get more defenses. The siege works allows you to construct the troll catapult. We'll be going more into that later. The fortress of Minas Morgul and Dol Guldur, it will give them a level immediately. Although, to be fair, it does not take much to level these things up. It used to be before you would use the influence of Sauron on a Dol Guldur fortress, and it would make Merkle spiders free. Let's see if it still does that now. It does, so ignore what this tooltip says. Dol Guldur and Minas Morgul don't actually, well, they might gain a level, but the main thing is the fact that once you do this, you can turn you can get spiders for free from Dol Guldur, or you can make the shadows that come from the Morgul blades of the Nazgul into Wretched Wraiths, which are single entities that when they take damage, they heal nearby Nazgul. Next up is the defense banner, allows you to research upgrades for your Harad and Rune summons from your tier 2 and tier 3 powers. And that's everything. Oh no, Kirithungol Barracks allows you to get the Orc Archers. They changed it back again. You now need the Archers. You need influence to get Archers again instead of needing it for Halberdiers. It used to be that it originally was you had to do it for the Archers. They then changed it for a few patches so you would get the Kirithungol Halberdiers from the influence, and then they changed it back again in the most recent patch, 4.8. And yet, also, as you can see, Sauron, this isn't his only form. He can turn into a flame form. He has the Power of Passages, which turns him into his Goreflower state, and then gives him 3 different forms he can take. And then if he takes the One Ring, he assumes his mantle as the Dark Lord in his Dark Battle suit. And he gets a whole list of powers, similar to how the hidden one has his thing. And that is basically the entire unique mechanic of Mordor, is just having the Dark Lord Sauron at your beck and call to just make your faction stronger by making him stronger. Because he gets so many different powers, and we'll go over all of that when we talk about the hero roster. But for now, we're going to talk about the strengths and weaknesses of the factions that we've just finished talking about mechanics. So, the strengths and weaknesses of Mordor. First strength, they get basic orcs. So orc warriors from Dol Guldur, and Minas Morgul are all free. They are just the fact you can make this unit for no resources means you can invest those resources into getting your pantry, so you can get more orcs, your heroes, who are essential for you to do really, really well with Mordor, especially since most of them are linked to the Dark Lord himself. You also have probably the largest hero roster in the game. You have so many units, as you can see from just me hovering over everything. You can see we've got 4 different units from Minas Morgul, 5 different units from Dol Guldur, 3 units from our Kirithungol settlement, our 3 basic orcs, overseers, trolls of 2 different variations, a lot of different siege, and then reinforcement troops that are permanent, that are, there's just so much. I think Gondor is close to having the second largest roster. Mordor definitely has the largest. And every single unit feels significant as well. You don't just want to be getting your basic orcs for the entirety of the game. Once you start getting your outposts, you want to start getting those. And that actually goes into a mechanic I did technically miss. Was that, let me actually show it off quickly, is the new banners that you get from your outposts. The banner of the Tainted Lord or the banner of the Dead City. Let's show it off. So you tap the building, you tap a basic barracks, and now it has the influence from that faction. And now it can recruit from that pool. So you can now recruit Minas Morgul troops from when you give something a Minas Morgul banner. It also gives it a few orcs to defend from Minas Morgul, and the same for Dol Guldur. It even has a glowing eldritch aura around it, or the more ruined spires of Dol Guldur, once known as Amon Lank. You can still recruit the basic orcs though, as you can see here. They're still recruitable if you wanted to get them, but honestly you don't really need to. Anyway, back to strengths. They also have a lot of really powerful powers. Every single power that Mordor has feels perfectly crafted to do a single role and do it really well. And yeah, it just works. Everything works for them. The weaknesses of Mordor is that your entire roster is mostly of basic troops. You don't really have an elite roster. Your best thing you got for elites are trolls and your reinforcement troops, but they're not really that. Well, firstly, you can't spam the reinforcement troops because you can only get this many per use of the power. And trolls are expensive to keep replacing constantly, and a single entity. So if you get shot by archers or hit by pikemen, that's it, they're done. But yeah, your basic troops, you don't really have any elite troops. This is the best you get, and they're also limited. But they are free of upkeep, so always get all of your Kirith Ungol troops. But yeah, your main thing is that you're just clump faction. So any AoE attacks from characters like Galadriel, from Glorfindel, wizards like Gandalf and Saruman, they can just wipe you out really easily because you don't have many ways to make your units strong. You have quite a few good options to make your enemies weaker through all the Nazgul, and also from things like Darkness and the Overseers themselves when we get into the unit rosters. But yeah, Mordor's main weakness is the fact that they are reliant on being a horde faction. They don't make an army of elites and then you can just work with those elites for the entire game. You need to be spamming the crap infantry to protect your better stuff. But your better stuff, if you lose it, it's not going to be cheap to get it back. And that's pretty much going over all the strengths and weaknesses of Mordor. If one thing I can say about them very quickly, I'll go more into detail later. I think when the second this faction came out, when Edain 4.0 first came out, I feel like Mordor was already the most perfectly sculpted faction, and is the one the Edain team put the most effort into. But we're going back into that at the very end of the video when I go over the overview. So now let's go over the unit rosters themselves. We've already done a bit of talking about them, but let's have a quicker look at them. So we have our basic orcs, and you can see here we can have our overseers join them. And when overseers join our troops, we have the choice of, if they're basic Mordor orcs, they get 50% more damage and more armor. If they're Dol Guldur orcs, they will get less damage than they will armor. And if they're Minas Morgul troops, they will get more damage and less armor. And also, you can see from just looking at the basic orcs, every single orc unit that doesn't have an overseer has the bloodthirsty trait. That is how you get your units to level 5 and get that level for Sauron if you haven't got it already. You can also see we don't really have any upgrades because, again, these are basic troops. We don't have upgrades for them. Even Misty Mountains goblins can get upgrades. These troops cannot. They're just meant to be bare bones, weak as all hell, because you give them a bunch of buffs to make them stronger through temporary effects from things like Darkness. Every now and again you can get a few overseers through your overseer power at level 1, at tier 1 even. And then also, again, debuffing them with the Nazgul. You can get fire arrows for your archers, I already mentioned before, by purchasing the upgrade from the barracks, which requires the influence of Sauron. But yeah, your basic orc troops, it's as simple as that. There's no upgrade, there's no real thought behind it, but the overseers do give different things depending on who they're attached to. Let me just show them off when they're attached to pikemen. So, swordsman, you can use the ability Crack the Whip. For 30 seconds, the orcs deal twice as much damage against pike units, but have 25% less armor. This ability, I kind of feel like, is their Forged Blades ability, but with a caveat. Because you're getting bonus damage against the thing you're meant to be doing more damage to, but you also have a bit of a weakness to it. Crack the Whip for pikemen is probably the best one. Deal double damage to cavalry and monsters, and slow them down twice as much when being trampled, but have less armor. So basically, they're probably going to die in the charge, but this will make it so they're going to take them out 1 for 1 against most cavalry. And then archers with Crack the Whip. For 30 seconds, the archers deal twice as much damage against other archers, but have less armor. So, you know, more damage against archers, pretty good. The armor reduction for the archers is probably the least detrimental, because they're already going to get one shot by most things anyway. This just makes it feel less damning, I guess. Next up, let's go over the Dol Guldur and Minas Morgul troops first. So, the Dol Guldur troops, the only thing that's different about them is, well, for one thing, the Overseer buff is less. You can only get them from Dol Guldur until you get the Banners of the Tainted Forest ability. But they do have poison attacks, which, despite what it says on this tooltip, it actually just gives them a... whoever is being attacked by the orcs, whether it be the pikemen, the swordsmen, or the archers, they're all going to get poisoned and take more damage. It doesn't actually mean they do double damage. What it means is they're taking a damage over time effect from the poison. And I believe from what the Edain wiki said, it was Edain Mod fandom wiki. It's 3 poison per second for 10 seconds. So you poison something, it's going to take 30 damage. You poison it again, that 30 damage will reset, and whatever damage is already dealt will be dealt. And that just keeps happening over and over and over again. Probably one of the worst versions of poison that we have, considering that the outbreak power for Angmar is probably the strongest poison ability in the game. But you can see here, whatever they touch, if they're trampling into them, for pikemen, their revenge damage kicks in. Orcs, whenever they hit something. Archers, when they shoot things, they're going to take poison damage. Obviously, if it's a building, they're not going to take the poison damage. But any units, heroes, monsters, doesn't matter what it is, if it can breathe, it's going to get poisoned. And it can hurt quite a lot, considering you can probably just use a few poison archers to begin with, and that would do really well. But honestly, out of these units, I think the pikemen are the best, purely because the extra damage they deal from the poison does feel noticeable. And next we come up to Minas Morgul. Their thing is that they wear heavy armor, which if you have been paying attention to the health, you can see a single orc warrior of Minas Morgul has nearly double the health, if not exactly double the health, of a basic orc warrior. 153 for a level 2 orc warrior. 327 for a Minas Morgul orc. They're also fearless, so they're less likely to run away, which means they are technically the most elite orcs you're ever going to get, because they have just got that extra bit of dog in them. And then obviously the Overseer is basically like giving them forged blades, in a sense. It's more damage and armor in some way. And then obviously we have our pikemen. They don't have any other abilities other than having bloodthirstiness and the obviously Soldiers of the Dead City ability. But then your archers, the orc archers of Morannon, are probably the strongest in that they have fire arrows. But honestly, I would say getting basic orc archers is just as good, because you actually get more damage out of them from being able to get them more regularly. The extra heavy armor doesn't do much for an archer unit. You want them for your front line, not your back line. So have a nice mix. But obviously, thanks to these new banners, you don't need to worry too much about actually getting your basic archers sorted out anymore, because you can just make all Minas Morgul troops, all Dol Guldur troops. I also forgot to mention about the spiders. I'll talk about them now. They're probably the closest thing you have to a basic cavalry troop. They're not cavalry, however. They're technically a infantry troop, similar to that of the Wolves of Angmar. They're just faster infantry. They do mostly damage to pikemen, but their ability, Spider Presence, animals fear spiders. Attacking cavalry units have less speed and damage. So it's just a weird little ability. It's a cool little ability, but weird at the same time. And obviously you can get the Broodmother, I say little, the bigger spider that's meant to be the banner carrier for the group. Personally, not a very strong force. That's why you get them for free once you get them all. Thinking of, again, their type is monster. They're not actually monsters. If you trample with anything, these can't trample. They don't do trample damage, so they're not going to get killed by pikemen. They're actually anti-pikemen. So keep that in mind. They just have some bonuses against cavalry. Next up are the warriors of Cirith Ungol. We have the Black Uruk of Cirith Ungol. Their tearing weapons deal bonus damage against heavy armor. So their damage type is actually called Uruk, which is basically the damage type of any entity that can deal damage through heavy armor. And by that I mean they do more damage against things that have heavy armor. Because the thing about heavy armor is it mostly gives you more health. So this unit doesn't matter if it's got armor or not. It's going to do as much damage in either states in that regard. Then we have the Cirith Ungol Halberdiers. They're effective against infantry, cavalry, and monsters because they do both slash and specialist damage. They're one of the few units that actually have a double damage type. And it being on a unit like this makes them very, very impactful. Only costing 600 to have a good against everything unit is really, really good. I used to always make these units because they were just that impactful. Porcupine formation unfortunately sucks, so don't ever use that to keep them in this formation and they're good. And yeah, they're just good against everything. They do, however, take more damage from most things too because they are classed as pikemen in their armor value. I don't know if they actually class as having heavy armor themselves, but they do have decent health. So I would say they actually class as having heavy armor. And last of our Kirithmal troops, we have the archers, the Uruk archers. In fact, the only Uruk archer unit in the game. Obviously, there's more Orc archers, but Uruk-hai crossbowmen are the only other Uruk ranged unit in the. Actually, no, I tell a lie. There's the Uruk-hai scouts, but they technically don't have permanent bows anymore. Their ability is the barbed arrow. Anything that is shot by these barbed arrows is cause terrible pain, reducing the strength of their attacks. Yep, we have a strength debuffing ability on a ranged unit. It's very obvious when it's being used as well, because the entities will turn red. And it is so good. So, so good. You basically just want archers with your clump, because they will be shooting and doing a lot of damage. With Mordor, most of the time you just want to have an infantry base that does no damage, just soaks damage. Your archers are your damage. That is very much how it works. These guys make it so the more elite of your units stay alive a little bit longer than most other things. And next we come up to, I guess we'll leave the heroic troops for last. Let's have a look at the trolls. So as I mentioned before, trolls, when they get the influence of Sauron on a troll lair, can be given armor. And when they get armor, they go from 3,600 health to 6,600 health, and then can purchase a siege hammer to do more damage to structures, an assault mace to do an extra bit of AoE knockback, or a sword like Moloch to deal bonus damage to units, heroes, and monsters. Basically becoming a pure in combat specialist instead of being a damage specialist against buildings, or just an all-round monster with that assault mace. Next up is the troll drummer, which gets their nasty little roar, which makes things run away from them, and also gives them a leadership effect of 15% damage and armor and fear resistance to all nearby troops. It's always good to have a troll drummer around. They're pretty healthy as well, nearly as much health as a armored mountain troll, but obviously they are very weak to getting shot, so I would say try and hide them, but you're not going to hide a giant drummer troll, are you? You can't hide that. It can swing pretty hard though, so yeah, you know, use them. Use them, they're pretty good. Next up is our siege. We have the basic battering ram, nothing special about it. We have the siege tower, which is nothing really special if you think about it. It's been around since BFME 1. When it attaches to a wall, that thing will fall down, and anything that goes into the siege tower can just climb it and get it onto the walls, and then you can retract it from the walls if it's attached to a wall. Next up is the Orc catapult, which has a basic bombard. The halt auto-acquire orders allow it to shoot whenever, or the switch ammunition, which you can get when you get Gothmog to a certain level and uses release the prisoners. If you remember, it's a fear-inducing skull shot that makes any unit nearby just run away in fear. Really good. Otherwise, it just fires a flaming shot. Then we have the troll catapult. Let's actually get a good idea of what their damage is. So, ordinary catapults, because we've got to show that the troll catapult's worth it. So that did, let's say that was 300 damage. 300 damage, that is what that looks like. A troll catapult did about 3 times that much damage. It is also nearly twice as much. So yeah, that's why this is behind an influence of Sauron use, and this one is more of a just all-rounder. Also, nearly twice as much health, so it's harder to destroy. Not really saying much though, since they can be quite easily destroyed anyway by any cavalry that comes into contact with them. Lastly, we have our summoned troops before we get to the heroics. We have the rune axeman even, which can go into a shield wall formation. and then come out of it. They're basically a version of Gondor's soldiers for Mordor. And then we have the Rune Halberdiers, probably our most elite version of pikemen, and do pretty good damage. They are, once fully upgraded, about as good as Cirith Ungol Halberdiers, and that's pretty good to say they're free when you consider they're only a power use. And then lastly, of course, our final big monster, the Mumakil. Anything it tramples will be killed, but if it's pikemen, you better beware, because this guy may have nearly 10k health. He can still die. You can also have a unit of archers garrison the Mumakil, but not if they have an overseer. You can see there, this one has the little arrows coming over it, but if there's an overseer in the unit, it is not permitted to enter. Same with the towers. If they've got an overseer, they are not allowed to go out of the map, because otherwise I think it breaks the game, I think. I don't actually know. Don't ask me to confirm. And now we come to our heroic troops. Our two heroic troops come from our outposts. We have the Castellans of Dol Guldur, who have the ability to drain the life from the land around them, and then they can, after they use this power, gain more damage and armor for a time, which is a very useful ability from level 1. And then at level 5, they're just immune to any kind of magic, poison, or elemental damage. I personally cannot confirm whether or not that is true. I kind of want to test it. I'm sure small meteor is mostly fire damage, so let's actually test this out. So King's Favor, let's get this unit to tier 5. It's tier 7. Well, that works. I've no real way of seeing if this is fire damage, but actually no, I do have a way of testing fire damage. Hold on. I actually want to test this now. We have dragons on this map. Let's teleport him over there, and then let's teleport the. Let's move the castle a bit more out, because otherwise I'll teleport Dol Guldur as well. I don't want to do that. So let's teleport the Castellans and have them fight the dragons. Let's see if they take any damage from dragons. Let's see. They do still take damage from the dragons. Interesting. Does that mean the dragon damage isn't fire-based? Or does this not actually care? Oh, it's not fire. They're not resistant to fire damage, you dumbass. Oh, I'm an idiot. They're resistant to magic and elemental damage. I need to read things more. Let's kill them off so we don't have to worry about it anymore. Okay, let's leave that over there. So, things like Gandalf, or other Dol Guldur faction things, or even an outbreak, for example, would not kill the Castellans. In fact, I do have a way of testing. I'm not going to. I would say there's another way of testing them, is reverse convert them and then shoot them and see if they actually take a poison tick. I'm not doing that. We've done enough of that. Our other elite heroic troop even are the Knights of Minas Morgul, one of my favourite cavalry units in the game. They're just so menacing. They lose less momentum when trampling, and are already weakened by the presence of a ring spirit. So that means if you have your ring wraiths on their horses, working with these, they just get a passive ability to trample harder and not slow down as much. And when they get to level 6, when they die, they become a spirit upon death. And in fact, I do want to test this as well, because it does say on the tooltip it only gives the fortress a level. It doesn't say it turns them into wretched wraiths anymore. I need to know, because otherwise they've just kind of ruined the whole thing about Minas Morgul. So I think I'll see those. I need to level up the knights before I kill them, damn it. Oh, I'm an idiot. I know I'm an idiot. Hold on. Not worried about no wild walks. Doesn't need to get over here. Come on. Thank you. Now then.
You have done well this day.
Level these up. Let's do this right. So let's level this up. Get to the eternal foreshadowing of evil.
You have earned my favor.
And then let's knock a few out the field with the power of the Maiar. And now they should become wretched wraiths upon death. Yep, and yet good, they can still be enslaved to become wretched wraiths. So now I can show you the actual thing here about the Morgul Shadows even. Bondage of the Wraiths. The life of Morgul Shadows is bound to the will of the Ring Wraiths. Any life the Morgul Shadows lose will transfer to nearby Nazgul. There we go, we confirmed it. It works. Everything is fine. Those Castellans are fighting for their lives. You know what? I'm going to let them keep trying. Because that is all the units. Every single unit has now been looked through for Mordor. I'm fairly certain I've looked through everything. I'm just going to go through everything to make sure I've not missed anything. Nope, I've gone through everything. Very large roster. A lot of it is very samey. The fact they've got the same orcs for every through our outposts. But the point is the fact that it is meant to feel very thematic. That there are all of these different forces of Mordor colliding together when you get their outposts. Anyway, next up on the list are their heroes, and they have one of the largest roster of heroes. So let's begin with their scout hero, Gorbag and Shagrat. So, Gorbag and Shagrat have a very strange relationship. You can choose to be either of them using the level 1 power. Shagrat has a small area of effect attack and has more armor. But Gorbag causes poison and his attacks are faster. So it depends on what you want. Just a quick slap around the face with Gorbag or some real damage dealing with Shagrat. And I personally prefer having Shagrat as my scout hero. Because he has, for one thing, the Foul Guardian, Black Uruk. Which means he can summon 3 Black Uruks to protect a building. Let's just get rid of these guys now. The buzzing on the back of the screen is causing me problems. I don't like it. Get rid of it. Anyway, where was I? Back to Gorbag and Shagrat. Yeah. When you're playing as Gorbag, you get a thing called an Orc Scout. Or used to be called an Orc Snitch. Which is basically your slightly better visioned orcs. You can see here, he can see quite far. And I believe they can also unveil hidden things. So if you can see Gollum anywhere, he will find it for you. Which is good because you obviously want to find the One Ring for Sauron. Next up is Greed. Greed, again, comes in 2 different forms. One for Gorbag, one for Shagrat. When Shagrat is in control, he will deal damage in a small radius and gain resources per hit on an enemy unit. Gorbag, when he is in control, will give you resources equal to the... in fact, I'll just show you. He gives you 10 resources every time he hits an enemy building. That also includes lairs. So use this against lairs to get some quick money, because he attacks faster as well, don't forget. Next we have Compulsive Cooperation, which allows to summon the other half of the pair. In this case, Shagrat, for a temporary amount of time. It used to be bugged where you would play as Gorbag and you could temporarily summon Shagrat, but Shagrat wouldn't go away, he'd be permanent. So you could summon multiple Shagrats, each with AoE damage sometimes. And then finally you have the Snagger Orcs. You can even see they're fighting each other in their eye animation. It's so cool. You can summon a unit of Kirith Ungol Halberdiers if you are currently Gorbag. Or if you are Shagrat, you get a unit of Black Uruks. And they are temporary, of course. Sorry for the sudden break there. My game decided to crash. As you might have seen that 1 pixel frame if I didn't clean that out properly. What was I saying about Gorbag and Shagrat? They're good. They're good scout heroes, and they're good fighters in the end as well when you can summon a full unit for a temporary summon. Next up we have Gothmog, who can summon a total of 20. That's a total unit of Black Orcs to reinforce a nearby Orc horde. It used to be a tap and it'd be work anywhere effect, but now it specifically only works on another Orc horde, which is cool. Just strengthening their lines for a bit with the entities that each have if they stop moving for a second. So I can target one. Have 142 health, so about as much as a tier 2 Orc warrior. You can also mount on his Warg, which is interesting. Makes him one of the only heroes that isn't a Nazgul. Let me move the hidden one out of the way. It's kind of just spoiling the mood of the Dark Lord's servants here. One of the few heroes that can actually mount on a horse, other than well, I say mount on a horse, mount on a warg. He then gets the ability Captain of the Orcs. Means all nearby orcs just deal more damage on a fearless. So they get the power of Minas Morgul with even more panache. Then gets, as I mentioned before, release the prisoners so that he can order a catapult strike to release human heads instead of flaming rocks to make your enemies flee in fear. And then finally the attack order. Nearby orcs and siege weapons gain more attack damage and suffer only 25% damage from archers and siege weapons. So the perfect tool to attack an enemy base is Gothmog's attack order, if you just want to really mess things up. Next up, let's finish off the final hero that levels up on his own, is Moloch. He starts with an unending rage every 8 seconds. His damage is increased by 20% up to 100% for a total of 40 seconds. So, you know, 100% damage bonus on a troll that only does 300 damage per swing, considering a hero like Shagra only has 2,000 health. He's going to beat him up pretty quickly, and he also has a pretty big health pool himself. He can also switch between wielding a hammer for bonus damage against buildings, and a sword for bonus damage against units, heroes, and monsters. And obviously has a decent AoE. Then we have the technically only left in the game Catch Rogash ability. His leap. He then has a shatter ability that can disable a building for 1 minute. Is a stupid amount of time. That's almost as stupid as avalanche. And then he can also summon 3 attack trolls that will have either swords or I'm gonna have to venture catch Column in a second because that's getting on my nerves. Can summon trolls to aid in the fight, and you can see they wield attack maces. Yeah, they either get the mace or the hammer, depending on what weapon you have Moloch equipped with at the time. Also, you know, just summoning 3 fully armored attack trolls is insane value, making him a devastating threat. Obviously, you're not going to get him early on; he's pretty expensive, and it takes a long time for him to level up. But it's worth it, especially if you want that level on Sauron if you haven't already gotten a Gothmog. Now let's go to the heroes that can level up through the Dark Lord Sauron himself. Let's start with the Mouth of Sauron. He has 2 Palantir's worth of abilities. He's got his basic abilities that he has mostly from, I say mostly from, there's only his mount and his evil eye that is the same as in his vanilla version. But yeah, he can mount and dismount. When he's dismounted, he can use his ability Morgul Sorcery. It's Lightning Sword. It's Lightning Sword, but somehow it's cooler because it is green. It also looks like it is Mother actually talking while he's just idle, which is so cool. He also has the ability Dark Veil, which allows to coat a building in dark mist, confuse nearby enemy units. Nearby units are stricken with madness and fight against allies. You know, just target an enemy building. Or is it allied building? It says coat a building. It means it could also coat an enemy building. But I'm not going to test that. But yeah, give it a Dark Veil. Make it so our enemies will be crazy, be stupid amongst each other. Just nearby. And then obviously the Evil Eye. Really good against killing off single target entities, especially heroes. And then we have his different words. He has the Words of Delusion, which in the area units will only have half sight and range, which isn't really good unless you really consider the fact that you can use this on archers, and that just means they're not going to be doing anything. Then there's Doubt. Enemies in the area lose half their speed. Furthermore, cavalry slow twice as much when crushing through enemies. You see the different crown effects for each of these. Then we have the Words of Misery. Target enemy hero deals half damage for the duration of the ability. It says target enemy heroes. Okay, they did change it from enemy hero to heroes in the area. And then finally, Descent. Sets target units to fight against each other. So that's his old level 10 ability he had back in the day of the BFME 2. But he also has the Dark Veil that kind of does the same thing, in a sense. Then obviously Descent just makes it a even more effective tool because he gets 2 of them. And obviously you can see he gets that one at level 3, level 5, level 7, level 10. level 1, level 4, level 6, level 8. But obviously, all of these are tied to Sauron's level. So if Sauron's level 10, he will have all of these, even if you haven't recruited him yet. And also a little bit of trivia. The map of Sauron used to be one of these missions, but then they changed it around. Now we come to the Nazgul. Let's start with the Dark Marshal and the Shadow Lord. These two are technically the same hero, except they have a different ability. You have either Morgul Blade or Screech in this basic form. But you can give them both the Ring Hunter status, meaning that they will be better at finding the One Ring and can ride on a Fell Beast. But they'll miss out on having more armor and more combat strength with a new ability as well from being the Dark Marshal or the Shadow Lord True. Let's give them their armor stakes. That's the one I prefer anyway. So we can see here the Dark Marshal, his ability at level 10. Well, first he gets the Screech and the Morgul Blade, same as the Shadow Lord, as you see here. And then he gets, at level 10, Massacre. The Dark Marshal projects such sheer terror into the minds of those around him that their armor seems to do nothing. All enemy units, so all nearby units, can be killed with just one melee attack. That is unfortunately an over-exaggeration. It just makes it so they are really, really weak. Making sure anything can die in one hit is stupid. I don't care if it's against Veterans of the Last Alliance or against Mordor Orcs. That is not how this power works. You cannot prove... You have to prove otherwise before I believe you. The Shadow Lord has a more believable power, which is... the Shadow Lord surrounds himself with dreadful magic which harms anyone who dares to attack him. 50% of all damage dealt to the Shadow Lord will be reflected. So that's the ability. That's a pretty nasty ability. Any damage is just reflected off him, which I believe used to be Kumul's ability. Let's just have a look at Kumul when he's not armored up, because he doesn't actually get a second choice. He can just ride a Fell Beast from the straight trail, because you can only get him from Dol Guldur. If we get a quick look at the output, so yeah, there you go, Dol Guldur. And then the same for the Witch King, but only from Minas Morgul. Anyway, back to Kumul. He has the first ability, Dread Visage, which obviously every Nazgul has. And this effect is improved for every nearby Nazgul. He then has, also has his own voice lines. Also has Peril of the Nazgul. Kumul terrifies the residents of an enemy building into submission, which disables the building and causes it to share the vision with Kumul for 1 minute. Again, another disabling ability of a building on a hero. And he also gets a Morgul Blade. Also, when he gets to use his insignia of the Lieutenant, he gets this cool armor he had back from the Hobbit movie. He can again ride his horse or go into a Fell Beast. Kumul's presence is a new thing. Instead of the basic Dread Visage, Kumul's presence terrifies and weakens his enemies, causing them to lose armor, as well as rotting wood, cracking stone, rusting metal, damaging buildings over time passively. For every Nazgul nearby, enemies lose additional armor and damage, same as, you know, a normal Dread Visage. But the main thing about Kumul is the fact that he is literally aging your buildings, well, enemy buildings, by having him nearby. His ability has now been upgraded to Dol Guldur's Access. The building is set out of action for 2 minutes now. Bats circle around the building and serve as Kumul's eyes and ears. This does have to be used pretty close though, so don't expect to get a lot out of it. Besides his Morgul Blade, he doesn't have a screech though, other than, you know, when you click him too many times he actually screeches. But he does get a special unit of his own. Let's summon them now. The Black Easterlings, which have very terrifying looking eyes. They have heavy crow's beaks hammers that deal bonus damage to heavy armor. They give us heavy damage against buildings, sorry. Heavy damage against buildings. So another building killer, not just on top of Moloch, but on top of Kumul as well. And you can get a total of 3 of these at once. This is technically your 3rd heroic unit, but only that can be gained behind Kumul. And now the last of the named ring wraiths, the Witch King, who can mount and dismount, can't apparently ride his Fell Beast in his basic state, except unlike Kumul. He has his Dread Visage, but also, him being unique, the Witch King and all of the Nazgul in range have bonus movement speed, vision speed, range, and damage. Although it's not very well shown at the moment. That will change when we give him his armor. He also has his Screech, makes enemies flee in terror. I believe that is the same wording as... Oh no, it just paralyzes them. So the Witch King's Screech is much more terrifying. He then has his Morgul Corruption, not Morgul Blade. But it's basically the same thing. Again, it's mainly just a rewording of the effect. And also Lordship of the Minas Morgul. He finally takes the mantle of Lord of the Nazgul. He gets this cool looking ring inscription around him. And this affects his allied Nazgul as well. Giving it, as you can see there, again, movement, speed, vision, and damage. I'm not 100% sure, but I think that might just be when he is in this state. But also, nearby enemy units lose all leadership bonuses, as well as 10% damage and armor, and enemy heroes lose 15% damage and armor. So that means, while the Witch King's around, all of the Nazgul effects are pretty much ignored when it comes to targeting units, but they just get even more debuffs from the Witch King to begin with. Insane work. You can then take a Wraith form, which is something you can actually take if you are the Ring Hunter versions of the Shadow Lord and the Dark Marshal. I'm only showing it off so you can see here. You can still use his ability Terrifying Malice. Target enemy's special ability timers are reset to just used. So that means these abilities here will be completely cut off. You don't have them. And obviously, once we get him out of his ring here, his unveiled state, his Wraith state, which, by the way, if you haven't noticed, it makes him so he can't attack, he cannot be attacked, but can still use some of his abilities. Can only be used while he's on foot. He basically sheds off his robes, becomes naked, and he can't be touched. To make it clear, Arrow of the Witch King is really cool. Fiery shockwave that throws everything around him into disarray. He just has his sword ablaze as if he was challenging Gandalf. He then strikes with his sword and does more damage against heroes. Can only be used when unmounted. But then you can see when he gets onto his mount, he gets his Screech back. And he can't use Arrow of the Witch King. He then can go onto his Fell Beast. And he no longer has his Screech. Oh no, he still just has his Screech. He still has Terrifying Malice, but he can't use Arrow of the Witch King. And then you can dismount by just clicking on something on the ground, and then you're back on the ground. Just like in Bithme 2. And yeah, really cool set of heroes. Anyway, pseudo-hero unit, the Black Riders. Used to be a unit, your heroic unit, in fact, for Mordor. You can only get from the Great Siege Works, believe it or not. They can mount and dismount quite easily. They have the Dread Visage, same as all the other Nazgul. But they, I believe, only count as one entity when it comes to this. Otherwise, you could nearly half all the damage and armor of all enemies, which would be ridiculous. It's already ridiculous that it's giving them minus 25% at least when it's just the heroes and not just this unit as well. Then they have Morgul Blades. They all, I believe, pierce only one target. Then they have their Screech, and then their main ability, the Touch of Blackness, the Black Breath, their terrifying poison which the Nazgul exhume. Upon activation, all nearby foes will be continuously poisoned. And there's no clear indicator either, so if you want to escape, you better notice that poison going off on your own troops when that ability is used. But yeah, whenever one of them dies, the rest of them will eventually bring him back to life, and they'll become a full unit of 5 again. Definitely worth running all the Nazgul together. It's a really fun combination. I really like it. Especially with the Witch King around, because he just buffs them to absurdity with that bonus movement speed. Finally, we come to Sauron himself, because we have to go over 7 different forms. So firstly, we have the Necromancer, his basic form. When he dies, he doesn't go back to the Citadel. You don't have to repurchase him. No, 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 no. He will just become a slightly weaker shadow and will eventually come back to life on his own. He can then become a wandering shadow and teleport himself a short distance. By the way, this used to be map wide, so be grateful that this got nerfed. Then we have the influence of Sauron, as we've already mentioned before. Target a building, any building, and then that building will have a bonus effect depending on what it is. Then he has Dark Swabs, which makes all enemies and ally units in the area weaker. Later, it becomes movable, and then slightly Later it means you can summon 3 Barrow Wights from Angmar. And then later on you can actually move the Dark Swabs a little bit before it eventually disappears. Finally, we have the Might of the Damned, which is a power when used on a unit, or any unit, basically makes them a corpse explosion. If you've ever played D&D, you know what I'm talking about. Inflicts greater harm when released. More powerful units contain more power when they are killed. So yeah, using on basic orcs is going to do like, say, 1 damage. A Doggle Door orc might do 2 damage. Minas Morgul, 3 damage. A Troll, for example, might do 10 damage upon death. This is all hypothetical, they don't know the actual damage numbers. I'm just saying that basically, yeah. 10 orcs is about as equal as 1 troll when it comes to the Might of the Damned ability. And also his basic attack in this form is a AoE Shadow, which doesn't do much damage, but it can tick several times. Next up is his Fire form, where instead of attacking with a shadow, you walk into things and he slowly burns them over time. He then has the ability Eruption, which explodes all things in the area, including allies, but doesn't do damage. It's just a disruption tool to try and escape, basically. Then you have the Burning Prison. For a short time, all heroes on the Burning Ground will be rooted. Does that include enemy heroes? It does not. No, good. We have the Wall of Fire. Sauron surrounds himself with even hotter flames that deal more damage and have a greater radius. So he's just making himself a real funeral pyre for all of his enemies. And then finally, he has the ability Ruler of Fire. Sauron releases a mighty heat wave in all directions. Hit allied units, heroes and monsters gain resistance to fire for 30 seconds. Enemies become twice as vulnerable against fire. So use this when you're already damaging things in the area, and then it just does even more damage to them. So Sauron can actually do some pretty decent damage in this form. Obviously not a great amount because it's meant to be a very cheap support tool. He's meant to be only 1200 in this form. When you get your power of past ages, which we are going to show off now because it doesn't really need to go over powers much later. You can see this dark aura effect goes around him, and then he transforms into his first age state when he still had power before the One Ring. Here's Gorthauer state, a more fair elven form, but in obviously dark evil armor. This is the form he was mostly in the time of Silmarillion. He has a transformation Palantir, which allows him to turn into a cloud of vampire bats, a werewolf, or the Anatar Lord of Gifts form, which if you've seen the Rings of Power, you get what that is meant to be all about. In this form, though, he does have some other abilities. First, mainly Influence of Sauron he still has in this form, but only in this form now. His other transformed states do not have this form, so keep that in mind when you plan to transform. His Blade of Destiny makes it so he has a chance of releasing a AoE damaging effect, kind of similar to the Witch King's Hour of the Witching ability, but every time he swings his sword. Then he has the Pillar of Fire, which is kind of similar to his fire form in his basic form, but does way more damage for a short amount of time. And then finally at level 10 he can summon his Fortress, Tolling Gorhoth, which can make werewolves, can summon vampire bats to damage things around him. It also summons a constant storm around the fortress that constantly damages anything near it. So, nice bit of lightning. Then you have the Doom Pyres to make your heroes cheaper if you haven't already recruited them all, which you should have by now. The Lava Moat decreases melee vulnerability of the fortress. And then the Magma Cauldrons, which would obviously is the same as the BFME 2 vanilla fortress ability. You just burn everything around the building. Next up is his vampire form, which he gets off as soon as he becomes a state. He can transform back just by touching the ground, similar to the Fell Beasts. And instead of damaging things like with his previous forms, it's kind of like his fire form, which just does damage to everything around him, slowly draining them of their life force. He then darkens the sky, making enemies more vulnerable, while underneath a swarm of bats he summons. He can fly faster by turning red. And then finally his Eternal Thirst Vampires leech the vitality of every enemy, restoring his own. Just a quick blood splatter, and just does more damage very quickly. Again, this is very similar to his fire form, but is slightly more resistant to most damage types because he can only be damaged by things in the air. Let me see if I can turn him back quickly, so we can get through this quicker. Because there's still 3 more forms to go over, by the way. 3 whole forms to go over. Oh, by the way, every time you transform back, you get all your powers back.
Nothing shall stand before us.
Other than obviously your other transformations. Let's now become a werewolf and show you the werewolf forms, which are mostly revolving around supporting the werewolves, and also just being a Giga Chad werewolf himself. His attacks do a DOT effect, not poison, a wounding effect, but constantly drains health. And notice how it says drain health, not steals health. So it's only taking their health away, not giving it to him. Can briefly trample enemies without being slowed. So the ultimate monster effect, if you want to, do that, however long it takes to actually trigger. Is he gonna? Okay, I guess it's just you use it and it's fine. Next up is Bite the Werewolf. Heavily damages an enemy hero and briefly lowers their attack speed, movement speed, and recharge times. So if you really want to get rid of a hero, this is your hero killer state, and also Bloodthirst. Himself and their werewolves just deal more damage. Really good ability. Really good overall, just supporting your fellow werewolf community. Let's get him back into his human form again, or his basic form, his Gorfhour form, and then turn him into Anatar, the Lord of Gifts. We're in this form is just before he makes the One Ring for himself, when he enters Eregion and helps forge the Rings of Power with Celebrimbor. He cannot attack, but he cannot be attacked in this form because he is a beautiful elf. No one is any the wiser about his disposition. Why would anyone want to harm him? He doesn't even have a health bar anymore, so it does even further prove he can't be targeted. He can use Spoiled Suggestions. Enemy units in the target area become dazzled by the gifts of Anatar. They fight for Anatar for the next 30 seconds and receive more damage and armor at that time. Notice how it says receive. They just gain more damage and armor for the time they're being controlled. Next up, Armistice. All units and heroes on the entire map cannot attack for 30 seconds. During this time, enemy resources produce more resources even. So you're basically saying this is a peaceful time. We don't need to fight. And in that time, you're making your allies stronger because you're giving them peace. Then find Hour of Extinction. Anatar sheds his mask and begins the siege of the enemy fortress. All gates in a wide radius are open, and catapults and battle towers on enemy walls are inoperative. During this time, enemy recruitment structures train troops at double speed. So this is basically saying we're doing this. We're ending this right now. It's over. We're beginning the fight, but you got to be prepared because you got to summon more troops in that time. Personally, this form is just purely flavor. It's definitely the worst form that Sauron has. Even in his base forms, he's got better forms than this. Let's turn him back to Gorfhour, and now let's just plant the ring at his feet because I don't want to have to find Gollum.
The ring has been dropped.
So this is his final form. And some of these powers you might remember because they're quite similar. He has his Burning Eye, makes enemies units flee in fear. This is his ability back from BFME 2 days. He has his Influence of Sauron, but before we go about that, what's this all about? So, the Lord of Mordor. As I mentioned before, he cannot die, he will just become a shadow upon death, and then rejoin after recovering. The Nazgul and Mouth of Sauron are powered by and tied to Necromancer and grow stronger. That's the same as before. So what's new? Any unit that sustains a casualty near Sauron will soon receive replacements from Mordor's inexhaustible hordes. All enemy leaderships and bonus effects are nullified when near Sauron. Leaderships, gone. Enemy units, all our units that take damage, instantly regenerated. Ridiculous. This is why it is a ring hero ability bonus only. Foul Vitality. Instantly heal half of your health, which is nearly as much as Moloch's, by the way. 7,381, but obviously you've got double the damage of that boy. Look at you. You've got the One Ring and everything. You're dazzled out, ready to kill. You've then got the Master Ring. Target's enemies are temporarily converted. Has a very wide convert radius. Definitely the largest convert ability radius, but not as strong as Saruman, because Saruman's ability is permanent. But other than that, pretty strong ability. You then regains the Might of the Damned to use on your units. He then has the Power of the Maiar. If you know this power, you know this power. It's also from BFME 2 Vanilla. It's the Explosion ability that damages only enemies and leaves a beautiful scorch mark on the ground. Then you have Consuming Darkness. Sauron uses his dark magic to create a magic vortex that draws enemies to its center and devours them. Doesn't literally devour them though, it just slows them down. It just means anything that's stuck in this area is going to be constantly sucked in. Imagine Fellwind if it was being constantly summoned just over and over again. That is what that power is. And then he's also got Tolingor, but most importantly, Dark Will. If Sauron uses all its might, no one is capable of standing against him in battle. For a short amount of time, he gets an enormous boost to attack, damage and armor. His speed and attack speed are increased by 50%. And just a little flavour note from the Edain team. When activated, Sauron will be the most powerful unit in the entire game. As if it wasn't enough that he's the Lord of the Rings and has all these amazing things. That is what he gets. Dark Will. There's a small little aura, not easy to show, but oh, when you see them slaps, it's just beautiful. It is actually a work of art. That's why I said at the beginning of this that Mordor was the most loved faction of the Edain team in my personal opinion. Because who else would put that in other than just to say, you know what? He's winning. No one's going to stop him. They tried. They died. And now they're just a remnant of the past. And that is all of the heroes of Mordor. But we're not done yet. We've got two more things to talk about. Firstly, structures. Our resource buildings, we have the tribute camps. That decrease the recharge time and our spellbook powers. We have the arsenals that discount our siege engines and unit upgrades, which aren't as good to be honest. We have slave farms that allows us to decrease the cost of our orcs. Obviously not that impactful, even though that's what I normally build. We get slaughterhouses from... where's the slaughterhouse? I'm just going to take a settlement quickly to show the slaughterhouse off. They decrease the cost of our monsters, which obviously means trolls. Then we have the Cirith Ungol barracks, which allows us to summon our Cirith Ungol troops. We've been over all of them already. If you want a reminder of what they do, then you just go back to the beginning of the video.
Nothing shall stand before us.
Next up are obviously the Orc barracks. We've mentioned before they can be upgraded with Cirith Ungol, with Minas Morgul or Dol Guldur enchantments, so that they can summon those troops instead of just these. They can also get banner carriers at level 2. Fire arrows when you influence a Sauron, and Goth Mod can be recruited from here. Got the Troll Cage where you can recruit Moloch, and obviously your Mountain Trolls and Drummer Trolls at level 2. And then you've got the Siege Works, which can recruit your Rams, Siege Towers, and Catapults, even from level 1. And then the Troll Catapults when you use the influence of Sauron. And then lastly, you have the Battle Tower from your main buildings, which you can then use the influence on to give your other towers double shots. You also have the banner, the defense banner, your special other building in your base. This makes it so any recruitment building in the aura recruits faster, 25% faster. Incredible. It's amazing. That's why it's 500 resources. It's so good. You also get for your outposts, the basic outpost, the Minas Morgul outpost, and Dol Guldur outpost. I always get them the wrong way around. Anyway, there's the slaughterhouse. Decrease the cost of monsters up to 30%. That's all our buildings. There's not really much to talk about with Mordor buildings. They're easy to understand. They're cheap and cheerful for most of it. But you also get some other defenses on a fortress map. You can make a catapult, a gate watcher, or a barricade around your fortress up to 4 different locations. Obviously, pretty good because it's more defenses around the base, which no other faction that doesn't have these that doesn't have walls can get. So that means obviously Isengard and Mordor can't. Isengard and Misty Mountains can't get these kinds of upgrades. They only get the outer protection, but they have different things, each of them. And lastly, before we go to the final things to talk about, we have our powers. We have Summon Overseers. If you haven't figured out what Overseers do, we've talked about them a lot. Well, this is how you get them. You summon 2 of them from a tier 1 power. Next up is the Eye of Sauron. Anything inside, that is the enemy. Losers most experience gains, and ally units are resistant to fear when in the Eye's gaze, which makes sense. The Dark Lord is blessing you with his presence. Then the reinforcements from Rune, as we see here, it summons 1 of each of those units. We then get the summon Shelob, Tailor of Killeth Ungol. She can spit webs, netting something in place for a bit of time. She can summon her Brood, which is always good, back from whatever it's called, be it me 2 days. And she can also tunnel into the ground. So yeah, for those that don't remember, this used to be a power in itself for Misty Mountains. There would be just a bunch of spiders you could summon. Well, yeah, they've made it so Shelob can summon those spiders, because you know that makes sense. Then we have the reinforcements from Harad, which summons the Mumakil, and 2 Haradrim Lancer units are only basic cavalry units. Then we get Banners of the Red Eye, one of my favourite powers in the game. Gives all units on the map a banner carrier. And then all hordes regenerate up to 2 fallen members. Amazing. And obviously you can see everything already has those things because we've got them. Then we get Darkness. All ally units, not just your own units, but if you have an ally fighting with you, they get damage and armor as well. You then have Call the Horde to increase production speed of all orcs. That does include Killeth Ungol orcs, not Orokai by the way, only halberdiers. To increase the speed of all your orcs from Dol Guldur, from Minas Morgul, and from Mordor itself. You don't have Power of Passage, which we've already gone into lengthy details about. Summoning making the Necromancer become Gorfau, the Lieutenant of Melkor. And then finally, well not finally, but there's then the Hammer of the Underworld, which allows you to summon Grond from a Siege Works. And then lastly is his Deadliest Servants, your middle tier passive. That is how you get your Nazgul, their special armor, or the Ring Hunter attributes from your Dark Martial Shadow Lord. And you can see here, Grond is not to be messed with. 20,000 health and Doubtful of the West. In Grond's vicinity, ally hordes replace a fallen soldier every 10 seconds. Really cool. That's not a thing I knew about. But also pushes the endless hordes on Mordor forward, breaking down even the strongest fortifications of the West. Can one-shot nearly any building. It takes a vast amount of health to survive Grond's onslaught. In fact, what's our biggest health building right now? Probably the barracks at 5,000 health. But that will get one-shot by Grond. I'm fairly certain I'll get one-shot by Grond. But yeah, that is everything about Mordor. Their units, their heroes, their abilities, what they're good at, what they're bad at, their buildings, their powers. Their ring hero, my god, this faction is perfect. And honestly, is one of the only factions that has had next to no changes since 4.0 came out. Like, the only things that have really changed are some of the expansion of power, how some of the powers work. Some of the powers are actually changed from when the power tree first existed. There used to be a power that would just regenerate one entity from every unit at level 1. That eventually became the Banners of the Red Eye power. Which, by the way, used to be a level 1 power. It used to be give all your orcs level 2 at level 1. I'm so glad they changed that because it did not deserve to be there. But yeah, giving things back cheaply is nice. Overall, if you're ever feeling like you want to play a faction that feels thematic, that feels like everything is done right by the law, this is the faction you need to play. Like, my god, everything about this faction is perfect. There are obviously some weaknesses, because there has to be weaknesses, otherwise it'd be too strong. Like, literally, the game tells you This is the strongest entity in the game if you use this power. It's insane, this whole faction. I love it. I honestly can't think of any way to make this faction better. And like in the past, I've been like with Isengard, oh, you could do some tweaks here and there to make them better, to make it more fun. I can't think of any improvements for this faction. And honestly, this is the perfect thing to show off for the 7-year anniversary, because I've talked so many good things about this faction, and I want to talk about all of it in one. And I will be doing more over-explains in the future. I've still got a few more to go over that I know quite a lot about. Some factions like Belfalas, which I've already done technically, and Isengard I want to do a bit more testing on before I actually do the over-explains. But I feel like for Mordor, I had to do it. I know too much about this faction not to do it. And I hope you all enjoyed. And I will see you all in the next one. I can't believe it's been 7 years. Thank you, every single person that watches my videos. Goodbye.